and will be available to view at a later time on our Facebook and YouTube page. At this time, I would like to introduce our chapter president, Madam President Paula Irvin.
Thank you, Keisha. And I see a lot of happy Women's History Month in the chat, so happy Women's History Month, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Paula Irvin, and I am the president of the New Haven Alumnae Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated is a private, not-for-profit organization founded on January 13, 1913, whose purpose is to provide assistance and support to established programs in local communities throughout the world. Inspired by the rich legacy of our visionary founders, on October 3rd, 1959, the New Haven Alumnae Chapter was chartered. At the start of today's Zoom, a slideshow was shared to highlight the chapter's alignment with the sorority's 5-point programmatic thrust. New Haven Alumnae Chapter's legacy of service to the Greater New Haven area has focused its involvement around the structure of these economic development, educational development, political awareness and involvement, physical and mental health, and international awareness and involvement programs. I am elated to extend greetings on behalf of the 123 members of the New Haven Alumnae Chapter, as well as be a panelist this afternoon. I will now turn the program over to our first Vice President, Katrina Wright, who additionally serves as our chapter's Program and Planning Development Chair. Thank you for joining us today for today's Women's History Month program.
Good afternoon. It is a privilege for me to welcome you to our 4th Women's History Month program on behalf of my sorority, the New Haven Alumnae Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. You could be doing anything else with anyone else, but you chose to spend this time with us. We are honored. I am thankful for my family in attendance today, my health, sisterhood, service to mankind, and just being in the presence of amazing women like you. Today's session entitled, Better Together, Collectively Transforming Lives and Strengthening Communities. One might say that transforming lives and strengthening communities is a woman's job. Others might say transforming lives and strengthening communities is a woman's calling. However, I am here to say that transforming lives and strengthening communities is a woman's impact. Today's session is meant to shine a light on the job, the calling, and yes, the impact. The impact we have on each other, the impact we have on our families, the impact we have on our communities and neighborhoods, the impact we have on our cities, towns, and state, and the impact we have on society. Women's History Month celebrates the contributions and recognizes the achievements women have made over the course of American history. And haven't we made some history this past year? Today, we will learn about and celebrate the accomplishments of 6 African-American organizations led by 6 strong, sensational, sharp, sizzling, and self-confident African-American leaders. The organizations are, again, my very own sorority, New Haven Alumnae Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated, Jack and Jill of America, and the Links Incorporated. We will spend our time today listening, learning, and laughing. My hope is for each of us is to heed the words of my soror, Angela Bassett, who once said, "Don't settle for average. Bring your best to the moment. Then whatever fails or succeeds, at least you know you gave all you had." We need to live the best that's in us. Today's moderator and discussion leader will be my beautiful soror, Debbie Stanley McCauley, a 21-year member of the New Haven Alumnae Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Debbie, take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. I too am thrilled to be hosting Women's History Month and to serve in the role as moderator. And we have a wonderful, wonderful panel. And I'd like to introduce you to each of our panelists. I'm going to read an abbreviated version of their bio, For many of you on the call, you are here because you are supporting one or more than one of our panelists. So when you hear me read the bio, you're probably thinking, Debbie, you missed this, and Debbie, you missed that, and Debbie, you missed this. And you're probably right. And what I'm hoping we'll do today is we'll get a chance to hear a lot more about each of these women, hear a lot more about the impact that they're having through their leadership lens and on the communities that they serve. So let me start. We had a welcome from, or greeting from my chapter president, who we often refer to as Madam President, Paula Irving. Here's a little bit of Paula's background. Miss Paula Irving is a native of Miami, Florida, having relocated to New Haven, Connecticut in 2014. Ms. Irving received a Bachelor's of Science in Advertising at the University of Florida, and most recently completed her MBA with concentration in Business Analytics at the University of New Haven. Mostly all of her professional career has been in business sales as a trusted advisor tailoring solutions for small and medium-sized businesses. When Ms. Irvin is not working, and I'm not sure when that is because she takes all of our texts, all of our calls, all of our emails throughout the day, throughout the night. So when Ms. Irvin is not working, she enjoys gardening, DIY projects, listening to all kinds of music, traveling, and we do know that, so let me underscore traveling, and new dining experiences. Paula is the president of the New Haven Alumnae Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. She takes great pride in being a servant leader and serving the greater New Haven area. Please join me in welcoming and co-hosting this event, our chapter president, Paula Irving. And for those of you who are joining us, please feel free to use any of the reactions that are built into your version of Zoom. So you can applaud if you want, you can applaud if you want, up to you. Thank you. Our next panelist is Tony Lagann. Tony Lagann is the current president of the New Haven chapter of Jack and Jill of America Incorporated. And she's been a member of this organization for the past 20 years, where she served in several leadership roles. She's been vice president, recording secretary, treasurer, financial treasurer, and even the chapter's chaplain. Born and raised in Hartford, Connecticut, Tony Lagann attended Plainville High School. She then attended Southern Connecticut State University and the University of New Haven, where she earned an executive MBA degree. Tony is currently employed with the Department of Children and Families as a program manager of foster care. And she is a member of a host of organizations, and I will list a couple. She's a member of the New Haven chapter of the Girlfriends. She is, as she underscores, a proud member of the New Haven Alumnae Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. She is actively engaged in her community. And when I spoke with her last night and just a few minutes ago, she said she is thrilled to be part of the panel. And we're certainly thrilled to have our Sora on the panel. Welcome, Tony.
Thank you. Thank you, Debbie.
You're welcome. Our third panelist is Mrs. Shanae Drawn. Shanae serves as the president of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Theta Epsilon Omega chapter located here in the city of New Haven. She is the senior vice president of the Glendor Group and instrumentality of the Housing Authority of the city of New Haven. Ms. Drawn has over 16 years experience in the real estate development industry with an expertise in affordable housing, managing complex projects using tax credits, private debt, state grants, and HUD financing, so multiple levels of expertise. Her leadership has helped to provide over $650 million of real estate development in the greater New Haven area. Shanae, as I call her, has a bachelor's degree in law and real estate studies from Temple University in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and a master's of science and management from Albertus Magnus College here in New Haven. She is very active in her community as well, and is a member of the following organizations. The New Haven chapter of Jack and Jill of America, so I can imagine that she and Tony Lagann are often doing high fives and working collaboratively on projects. Hill Health Center, She's part of their board of directors, the Town of Hamden Planning and Zoning Commission, Black Caucus of Hamden, Connecticut, the Links Organization, the Chums Organization, and the New Haven chapter of Girlfriends Incorporated. Shanae, we are very happy that you can join us today. Welcome. Our next presenter, our fourth presenter and panelist, is Dr. Jasmine Hardy. Dr. Jasmine Hardy is the current graduate chapter president of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, Pi Lambda Zeta chapter. As a chapter president, Jasmine also serves as the state protocol and amenities coordinator, D3 coordinator, and representative to the Regional Elections Committee. She also serves on the Regional Standard Operating Procedures Committee and is a co-marshal of the 59th Atlantic Regional Leadership Council. So you're going to hear a lot about leadership during today's panel presentation. Professionally, Jasmine is a division director for compliance oversight in the Federal Civil Service. She earned a bachelor's degree in 2007, an MBA in 2008 from both from Southern Connecticut State University, and her doctorate in business administration in 2017 from Walden University. She's a graduate of Waterbury Public Schools and the founding class of Granville Academy. So we'll talk about FIRST as well in today's presentation. Jasmine strongly believes in the power of education, mindfulness, manifestation, extreme ownership, and embracing one's gift. And our goal today will be to hear more about how Jasmine, through her organizations, has embraced gifts and also distributed talent. Jasmine, welcome to have you. We're very pleased to have you. Next is Dr. Natasha Wright. And she and I chatted this morning and I said, how are we addressing you? And she said, Dr. Tasha is just fine. So let me introduce you to our fifth panelist, Dr. Tasha. She is a native of Connecticut, having been raised here in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Dr. Tasha holds an associate's degree in business management, a bachelor's degree in human resources, where she graduated cum laude, a master's degree in social work from Fordham University, and a PhD in human and social services. Dr. Tasha's research, her research interests are Black women and mental health services. And so I thought it was just so appropriate that we had her on our panel today. Dr. Tasha, we look forward to hearing about your perspectives around Black women. Dr. Tasha is the chapter president for Iota Chi Sigma Alumni Chapter of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated. She's a licensed clinical social worker working primarily with Black women. She's the owner and lead clinician at Heart to Heart Counseling, LLC, and the co-owner of Pathways to Wellness, LLC, providing culturally competent individual and family therapy. Additionally, Dr. Tasha is licensed to preach the gospel, and this is at East End Baptist Church in Bridgeport, making her a third generation of preachers in her family. Please welcome Dr. Tasha. Our sixth and final panelist. So we've got a big panel today, rich with history, rich with leadership experience, and rich with community engagement and involvement. And we often say last but not least is Kathy Graves, our sixth and final panel. Kathy is currently president of the New Haven chapter of the Links Incorporated. In her current role as Deputy Director of Economic Development for the City of New Haven and Executive Director of the Small Business Resource Center, she is tasked with the growth of small, successful businesses through the development of entrepreneurs. And I can only imagine how challenging that role must have been over the last year, Kathy, given the pandemic. Kathy has held leadership roles in the following organizations: the City of New Haven, Director of Compliance for Center Plan Construction Company, the Community Foundation for Greater New Haven as Vice President of Finance, Investments, and Administration, and Vice President of Special Projects. In her professional work, Kathy is also an active member of the Greater New Haven community. Kathy devotes much of her time to cultivating the New Haven community through various charitable endeavors and organizations. She is currently trustee for the City Employees Retirement Board, City of New Haven, board member for Continuum of Care and the Prosperity Foundation. She has served several terms as member of the New Haven Board of Police Commissioners and is a past board member and treasurer of the Urban League of Southern Connecticut, as well as a past commissioner of the Connecticut Commission on Health Equity and a member of Dixwell Avenue United Church of Christ. Kathy was a business major at Providence College, and she holds graduate professional certificates from George Washington University and the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. A longtime resident of New Haven, Kathy continues to proudly call the Elm City her home. Welcome, Kathy. And again, I welcome all of our panelists, Paula Irvin, Tony Lagann, Sinead Drawn, Dr. Jasmine Hardy, Dr. Tasha Wright, and Kathy Graves. I want to give you a moment to see the faces of our panelists. And I want to give you a moment to start to think about how we might engage with these beautiful women. As you can hear from the bios I just read, we have an amazing lineup of talented women who are movers and shakers. They're activists in their communities, and they're champions not only for women and or Black women, but they're champions for their community. And so we're going to get started. I have a little bit of housekeeping to share with you, and it's really how we plan to spend our time together. I plan to ask the panelists questions that will fall into 3 themed areas: advocacy, leadership and mentoring, and community outreach and engagement. I plan to use a popcorn format, inviting our panelists to join in with a response. And let me say this, with a brief response, right? So we're hoping to get through as many questions as possible because we know that each of our panelists is rich with history and knowledge. Some of the questions we ask will be open-ended questions. Some of the questions we ask will be fill-in-the-blank questions. Additionally, I hope to pepper in a few Women's History Month quotes. I saw someone started in the chat. I think it was Tanisha Asbury. She was the first person to say Happy Women's History Month to everyone. And so we want to say that, Happy Women's History Month to everyone who is able to join us today. We encourage you to use the Zoom feature. You can use it for reactions. You can use it for chat. When you use it for chat, we're encouraging you to use it to reinforce a message that you heard, to reinforce a statement or a phrase that resonates with you, or to use it just because you heard something that made you say, not quite sure about that. That's a new concept for me to consider. My job today is to really make this event fun and engaging. I actually think I have the best job of all of our panelists and speakers thus far. I'm personally excited and happy to moderate the discussion because I really believe that we are better together. And so let's get started with what I've been thinking of as New Haven's masterclass. And so my first question will be presented to all 6 panelists. They had the questions in advance, so I'm going to ask them to be a little bit succinct and practice brevity where we can. But here's the first question. Amanda Gorman, American poet and activist, in her 2021 inaugural poem, had a line that stated, "For there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it." Panelists, please give an example of how you and or your organization have been the light. And I'd like to start with my chapter president, Paula Irvin. Paula, will you begin this discussion for us?
Absolutely. So thank you, Sorry, Debbie. So I am actually so glad this is the first question because it lights me up to think about just how brave we are as women. And in celebrating Women's History Month, you know, there's so much history we can celebrate. And I think for me, that's a lot of the reason, you know, I put a lot of emphasis in taking time to learn my history and what's been accomplished by women around the world, right? So when we think about Delta Sigma Theta and Women's History Month, I immediately think about 1913, the month of March. So when we're thinking about the women's suffrage movement in 1913 and the impact that Delta Sigma Theta sorority and our founders had in this year, in this movement, it was amazing. And when you think about the light that was shed, that's been shed on our sorority for the last 108 years, starting from the very beginning. So, and I know you said keep it brief, but there's so much I can go into this, but I definitely want to just highlight over the last 108 years, we have been the light and we have been brave enough to see it and to be it. I think that's a lot of, it's one thing to see it and to be brave, but when you actually take those steps and put forth action and being brave, that's going to separate you from the rest. That's going to separate you from seeing it and actually doing it. So I would say for sure that movement in 1913, again in March, is what the light has been, and has, it's shed light on the whole sorority over the last 108 years. And we all know what the women's suffrage session was about, so I won't go into the details of that, but that is my answer. And I'm so glad this is the first question, because it's going to set the whole stage for the whole conversation.
Fantastic. Thank you, Paula. Tony, will you join us?
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. And since Paula giving out dates, I'm going to also say that
the master class is happening.
America Incorporated was founded. Our founder, Marion Stubbs Thomas, felt it extremely important to have something for children of color because we weren't welcome in certain spaces. So she, along with 20 other dynamic women, came together to form Jack and Jill of America so that we could develop our children into strong leaders. And I'm just happy that we were able to see what we needed in 2021 back in 1938. And we are striving to continue that legacy today. So it is wonderful to be the bright spot and that bright light to raise our children, as I indicated, to be strong leaders. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Shanae?
So since we're talking
a little bit about what Alpha Kappa Alpha is doing.
Yes. So since we're going to talk about the light, we see the light, right? So, so our organization has been a guiding light since 1908. We've been in the trenches around social and economic justice, civil rights movement, education, national nonpartisan lobbying, and justice affecting Black and Brown brothers and sisters. Our legislative agenda is led by our Connections Committee, where we continue to address inequities in our community, and more recently under our AKA Leads campaign. And I also participated in a panel discussion with State Representative Sean Scanlon on the importance of the child tax credit, which will lead to a broader discussion, I think, around tax reform in the state of Connecticut. So we continue to pass that torch that was bestowed upon us since 1908.
Fantastic, fantastic. Dr. Hardy, we need your input in this discussion. So talk to us a little bit about what your organization, Zeta Phi Beta, is doing to be that light.
Thank you so much for the question. And also thank you for the invite here today. I'm very excited to serve, and this is my first one. So I'm trying to bear with these nerves, but I'll take a shot.
You're with friends. Imagine.
Look, don't worry about it, Dr. Jasmine.
Exactly.
We got you.
If we were together, ideally, when Delta Sigma Theta sorority hosts its Women's History Month program, we are literally on the campus of Yale University, sitting on couches and chairs. We are not in a theater. And so we can't be together because of the pandemic, but imagine that you are sitting on a cozy couch with a nice firm pillow behind you, legs across, and we are just having chat, right? That's what our purpose and that's what our aim is today. So talk to us a little bit.
Thank you. I appreciate you all. Thank you. So I will say, Zeta, we're just sitting on the shoulders of torchbearers. We continue that legacy that was built back in 1920 by our triumphant founders. So 101 years of being the light, that's just what we do and what we would like to continue to do. So we have no choice but to be brave, to take initiatives and step out on faith to realize our truest potential. One of our major programs is called Zeta's Helping Other People Excel. It's an interactive, holistic, multidimensional outreach program designed to empower and promote healthy lifestyle choices across the lifespan. So as you can imagine, Z-Hope touches some of everything from social justice to action to finances and healthy babies. It just spans across even elder care. So the idea behind it is empower people, thus being the light. So with us being empowered, we're becoming active partners and improving the quality of life for people overall, including the men. We don't leave them out. So I'll say, Zetas, we are the light, and that's what we continue to do each and every day in everything that we do.
Thank you. And you did an excellent job.
Thank you.
Dr. Tasha?
Thank you for the question.
I'm curious to know which angle you're going to answer this question. Are you going to answer it one-dimensional through the lens of Sigma Gamma Rho, or are you going to answer it multi-dimensional through the lens of spirituality? Please address that question on our behalf.
Both. So let me first say thank you for the invitation and thank you for the question. I'll start with Sigma Gamma Rho. Our seven founders and educators came together back in 1922 because they saw a light. They had a light. It was driven by purpose and passion. And here we are today on our road to centennial. We continue to be and strive to be a beacon of light for all womankind. And we are the light through our three main pillars of scholarship, sisterhood, and service. So through our passion and purpose, we continue to be a light, definitely through our service projects. Thank you.
All right, where's that spiritual piece? Because I know you can't leave that one off.
Well, there's a light in each and every one of us.
There we go.
You don't want the preacher to show up. So
the preacher can show up.
The preacher be long-winded. So we're gonna keep this brief.
Thank you. And Kathy, can you speak with us about how your organization has been that light and is continuing to be that light?
Well, we've been around since 1946. This year we're celebrating 75 years, but we are the oldest and largest volunteer service organization, and we document over 1 million volunteer hours every year. We bring light in education, we look at civics, we look at intercultural activities, because it's important to us that we ensure culturally and economic survival for African Americans. So we continue to bring the light every year.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you. Kathy, I'm going to stick with you. My next question is about Black female leaders. As Black female leaders of the most prestigious African American organizations, right? You guys are really representing the most prestigious organizations in the African American community. Doesn't matter if we're in New Haven, Connecticut, or if we're in another state or beyond the United States. So the question I have is, will you give an example of a leader? Remember, it's Women's History Month, so we're celebrating women. Give an example of a leader within your organization and the influence that they have had on your leadership style. So we're going to straddle between you as a leader and the work that's happening under your watchful eye, and then really those that helped to mentor you and to support you in the organization. So would you talk with us about one of those leaders and what that characteristic of influence was or is?
Well, that's a difficult question for me because I never planned to be president of the New Haven chapter of the Links. My mother was in the New Haven chapter of the Links, and I just kind of grew up with it. So it was never part of my plan. So I look at the various women that are Links Incorporated. Let's start with Kamala. Kamala, our vice president. I mean, we start looking at women that have really attained goals, and whether they were planned or not, you can just pick and choose those attributes of each one of them. And I think one of the most important learnings that I have is just being my authentic self.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
And that's what I carry forward.
Thank you, Kathy. So for all of you note takers, there's a point there. Be your authentic self. Remember, I said I'm going to do a little popcorn, so I'm not going to offer this question up to everyone. So I'm going to come back to Shanae. And if the answer is I can't think of one person, that's okay. But can you tell me the qualities of the individual that has influenced your leadership style? Shanae?
Sure. I'm glad you didn't ask me for one person. Now, I'll be honest, when I saw this question, I said, well, you know, I've had enough experience and training in organizational health, and therefore I will not say just one individual's name. So I am greatly influenced by, and I'll just answer it and then in a way that I think speaks to the spirit of your question. I am daily intrigued and challenged and inspired by not only my chapter members, but people who are close in my circle, my sister friends. And so we often need that encouragement. I am on a DISC assessment. I'm a DI, right? I'm dominance and influence. And that sometimes, although can be definitely a positive, it also is something that you are always reflecting on. Could you have done it better? Did this go right? Did this go accordingly? So you always need those sister friends that are in your ear saying, congratulations, you did an excellent job. And the members of my chapter, I mean, my chapter's chock full of amazing women in their own right. And they inspire me every single day. And I take from them each, some attributes are multiplied daily because they're doing amazing things. We have authors, doctors, attorneys, social workers, nurses. And so I actually draw my strength from them. I think one important thing to also understand as leaders, it's okay to not be okay all the time. And
say that
so
once more.
It is okay to not be okay all the time. And so they have allowed me that space to kind of just sit back and recharge. But then when I recharge, they know I'm on 100 at that point. So, you know, I just draw strength, that not only, and I will say, not only from members within my organization, other organizations as well. I see you all, I see what you're doing, and we may not talk frequently, but when I do see you, I say, good job, girl. I see you. Keep up the good work, because you need that encouragement in your own community, especially in Black women.
Okay, fantastic. So your final words were especially in Black women. So I'm going to punt to Dr. Tasha, because in your bio, you said your interest and your passion is working with Black women, and that one of your areas of expertise was mental health. So could you talk with us a little bit about a woman or women, or the characteristic of women that have really helped to propel you in your leadership style, Dr. Tasha?
Sure, thank you. Let me first preface it by saying that I am a lover of women, and more specifically Black women. I have built, or what I assume, what I will say, I've built a culture of loving on women. I think that it is very much needed. No matter where we come from or our backgrounds, there is something special about women, most specifically Black women. So characteristics that I see: hardworking, loving, compassionate, driven, task-oriented. I'm very, I'm almost a taskmaster. But I say that to say it's because I can do a few things at the same time. So being loving and caring and compassionate at the same, all of it combined at the same time. These are qualities that I look for, the qualities that I admire in other women. I admire the story, the individual story of each and every person. I think that each person has something to glean from.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to pop around, and I'm going to start with our first fill in the blank. And I'm going to take this to Paula. Paula, Dr. Tasha talked about love, and one of our prompts is love means. And so I'd like to start with you, and I want to offer this fill in the blank to all 6 of the panelists. So we'll go in the order of Paula, Tony, Shanae, Jasmine, Dr. Tasha, and Kathy. Will you all respond to the prompt love means?
Absolutely. So I'm going to say one word after that. And for me, it's love means everything. I think when you put love in the midst of everything, everything else falls into place. So with everything you're doing, you know, if there's love in that, you're going to make sure you appropriate and do the right things. You know, nothing's going to make you do the wrong thing because there's love in that situation. You know, there's love for that person. There's love in that action. So love means everything. And I think if we move with love, of course, in every action, you know, it'll be aligned with, of course, morals and values and everything. So love means everything for me.
Thank you. Tony?
Trying to get to the unmute button. Thank you for that question. When I think about love and putting it in perspective with what we're doing as leaders, I'm thinking about openness. I'm thinking about the ability to pull people in. And I like what Dr. Tasha said in terms of loving on women. It's being able to not only learn from, but to also teach. That every moment is a teaching moment. But also when you're sharing and your openness about what it is that you're trying to accomplish, being a teacher, but also being a person that is that's learning along the same lines. I put down here too, value driven. Paula, I did like what you said in terms of, when I think about love, it drives me to make sure that I'm doing what is best and what is right for those I come in contact with, whether it's sorority, whether it's Jack and Jill or family.
Okay, fantastic. And I'm seeing in the chat that there are others that are responding to this question. So Pamela Washington said, love is everything. And I see others are responding. God has called us to love. That's Pamela Washington again. Rochelle Goodwin said, love is understanding. So Shanae, it's your turn. Fill in that blank. Love means?
Love is compassion. Love is caring. And I think for all the reasons that we've mentioned previously, and I know that my esteemed panelists will bring forth some wisdom around love and what that means to them. But I also think that love is something that's foundational.
Okay.
And so when you have love and compassion and caring, you pour into your work that you do professionally, you pour into your work personally. So I love love.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Jasmine?
Thank you. For me, I would say love means being honest with myself and others in all things. And so I think sometimes, tough love is necessary to the point where, we have to have these tough conversations with each other in a manner where, it's conducive to the environment. We're not hurting anyone's feelings, but we're also being honest when we see, hey, sis, you going down the wrong road. You might want to back it up a little bit. I've gone through this before. Let me tell you what happened to me so it doesn't happen to you. And so I think that level of, communication, caring, just doing it in a loving manner is important for us to be able to share our learned experiences.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Dr. Tasha?
Love means nothing if it isn't given away. So love is giving. Love is being selflessness. And giving looks different for every person. So for me, love is giving.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. And we appreciate all that you've given thus far today. Kathy?
I agree with everything that's been said so far. And I looked at this question and I said, gee, what is love? But if I love you, then I'm going to be honest with you and I'm going to accept the good, the bad, and the ugly. So that's where I'll stop.
Yeah, thank you. And that's that relationship, right? So that's the evolution of relationships. Thank you. And I see Katrina Rice wrote, love means nothing if it is not given away. So she's quoting one of our speakers. Thank you. I said we will delve into questions in a variety of categories. I'm going to move from the leadership category to the advocacy category because each of you were invited because of your role, but also because of the impact that your organization is having on the community. And so I'd like to ask the first advocacy question. And the question says, how has your organization conducted advocacy for change? This could be at the local level. This could be at the state level. And specifically, we know that you're working to support Black and Brown communities. Could you give us one example, right? Just one, because I want to have everyone participate in this. Can you give me one example of an advocacy topic that your organization has embraced and one action that you've implemented to support that advocacy topic? And Kathy, you're still on my screen, so I'm going to go in the reverse now. So you get to be first and not last this time.
Well, I'm going to just start with the most recent pandemic of COVID-19. And we were able to identify with data the most hardest hit areas here in New Haven so that we could supply masks when they weren't available. We had we had resources where we could go out and get masks so that we could distribute them to the highest hit areas. So on a local emphasis, it's the COVID-19 and the response to COVID-19.
Yeah.
It started, we came out of the door with lots of action, and it's something that we'll have to continue, because one of the things, we went over and above mask and we bought food cards, because yes, food was given out, but we figured if we gave people food cards, we empowered them to buy what they wanted to.
Fantastic.
So that's what we've done on a local level.
Thank you, Kathy. And for those of you that are on the call, I can imagine that the pandemic will probably be one of the topics that we discuss, if not in this question, which certainly it's welcome, it will be throughout this talk. And any of the strategies that you're hearing today are just that. This is what one organization did to address the pandemic. We know that we continue to be in a pandemic state, whether that be health pandemic or racial pandemic, right? I would encourage you to write down ways in which you can help the African-American community. It could be the donation of masks. It could be helping with the distribution of masks, and other programs that you're going to hear about. Thank you, Kathy. Dr. Tasha, talk with us just a little bit. One program, one advocacy topic.
So our advocacy topic, I'll stay with COVID-19 on the local level. And here in New Haven, we've done a two-pronged approach. We have supported essential workers and some of the rehab homes and nursing facilities. And we've also adopted some of our local schools to assist them with shortages that they've had, that some of the teachers have had over time. So we did a two-pronged approach because COVID was and is still rough. So that's what we did on our local level.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. And I love the impact of the different generations you're talking about, right? School age to adults. Dr. Jack.
Absolutely.
Talk with us about what Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated has done to impact the local community.
Sure. On the local level, we can engage with voter registration and elder care initiatives, because we feel, we all suffered the same issues with the lack of, participation in the last election. So we were pushing for everyone from all age groups to get involved, voter registration drives, and also making sure, strolls to the polls, we were involved in that. And I think it was important to show that, regardless of what's going on, you still have to play your part. And when we hear complaints about, potholes, lack of education in our communities, old books, old buildings for our children, these are some of the things that we push, to go vote and then start the change. And then on the elder care initiative, understanding I don't want to preach on the COVID, because I know we are all touching on that at some point, but we have times where we forget about our elderly. And that's one of it's something near and dear to my heart. And I know it's near and dear to a lot of our sisterhood and membership, but just making sure that our elders have the resources that they need. That's very important, because they've, paved the way for us. And as we stand on the shoulders of the hard work that they've done, I think it's important that we show them that love and respect and, dignity as they get up in age. So that's some of the things that we've been doing in the community.
Thank you. And just hearing between Kathy, Dr. Tasha, and now you, we used to use the term sandwich generation when we talked about someone in the middle being squeezed by either parenting or elder care. And really what the three of you are talking about is every aspect of every community and every age. Thank you. Shanae?
Yes, thank you. So, I'm reflective of the time, right, when it was in March, because we had just completed our regional conference here in Hartford, Connecticut. And we were looking at galvanizing a voter campaign, stressing the importance of taking the census, and then COVID, right? And so now you have to have these parallel tracks because they're all equally important, right? And so one of the things that our chapter did is we created a COVID task force with our foundation, the New Haven Pearls of Excellence, with a focus on senior citizens, children, and education. What we also did with that task force is that we leveraged our own chapter dollars and received grants from the Community Foundation of Greater New Haven and Yale University. With those funds, it allowed us to buy 205 grocery gift cards for our senior development in the Dixwell community, which are Monterey Place, Ella B. Scantlebury, Edith B. Johnson, and Victory Gardens. We also provided meals for frontline workers at Hannah Gray Homes as well as Yale Hospital. And we also supported, when we purchased the food for the frontline workers at Hannah Gray Homes, food from a Black-owned business, Ricky D's Shack. And so we always want to support, especially during the pandemic, because they were the hardest hit and they were least likely to receive the funds that were intended for small businesses. And then we also partnered with Wexler Grant and Highville charter schools to provide hand sanitizer, water bottles, informational cards. And that really came out of our chapter members as educators having boots on the ground, understanding firsthand what was needed in our young children.
Yeah, thank you. And so it's interesting because eyes and ears come from the members of your organization, right?
Yes.
Because often those that have a need don't raise their hand to say, Kathy Graves, could you help us with masks? Right. Kathy Graves, could you offer gift cards, right? It's really recognizing those communities. And so our last two speakers on this question will be Tony and Paula, starting with Tony.
Okay, thank you. On a national level, our organization established a task force, Our Health Matters, which actually devotes time to provide updates to the members about COVID-19. And in turn, we take that information and relay it to our communities that we're serving. Additionally, there's social media campaigns that we've done locally to educate and encourage our Black and Brown communities to get tested and get vaccinated, but then to also know where to go to get those things done. But most importantly, our health professionals in our organization have offered their time, pro bono, to provide services to families just to really understand the trauma of the pandemic in general. There's been a lot of loss within our Jack and Jill community, within our New Haven community, and these professionals have been able to provide the support that these families have needed.
Yeah, and thank you for the use of the word survive, because I think when we're talking about pandemics in certain communities, in certain families, it really is about survival. Often we mentally struggle to try to get to thriving. But for some members of our New Haven community and the greater New Haven community, they're not at that step of thriving. They're at the step of surviving. And so Paula, could you talk with us just a little bit about an effort that the New Haven Alumnae Chapter has pulled together in support of a community need?
Absolutely. So I think before we even got to 2020, we knew it would be a critical year, right? We knew it would be the census. We knew it would be election. But COVID-19 threw everything for a whole different shift. So the chapter, we did have to pivot. And pivoting, that meant we had to get creative in what measures are we going to reach the community in these times. So with the election 2020, just want to make a note, Dustin Data is a nonpartisan organization, but specifically to the outreach and the push to get our vote, it was very important that we still contacted and had some kind of communication with our communities. So in the fall, just given COVID, we did do a Get Out the Vote caravan, which is very, very important because it tackled those areas in New Haven that were the low voter turnouts. We had to make sure we still had people getting out to vote, whether it's by way of absentee ballot, going to vote early, but more so pushing the absentee ballot within the state. It was very important. People knew their vote mattered. And at this time, you had to still put your vote, in the box to be counted. So that was very critical for us. And just, of course, the voter education we've all spoke about too, is making sure people know what's happening. What are you voting for? The different elections that's happening this time of year in 2020. So very important to educate the community. So that was a great push we had as far as the election. But then thinking about the census, that was another big aspect. We knew when 2020 was here, that was going to be a thing. So making sure we still had people filling out their census by way of mail, by way of internet. There's different measures now, whereas back then there was only one way probably, but not having to think, okay, I don't have to fill out you do have to fill out your census. Like, it's still very important to fill out your census and vote. So still pushing the important messages to the community in very creative ways. So that is what our chapter had to kind of pivot and do with COVID happening all at the same time.
And I know some of those programs firsthand, being one of the sources of many to help try to advance those. Paula, will you stay with me and take this next question? The question, and this is still within our advocacy bucket, and then we'll move to another theme. Addressing the needs of the community is not a one and done action. And I know that all of the panelists would agree with that. And each of you in your introductions, you talked about the founding year of your organization. For Delta Sigma Theta, 1913. And for other organizations, we all celebrate our founding year. Could you give an example of a program or an initiative that has had a long-standing impact on your community? Certainly when we talked about COVID, COVID wasn't planned. I think for most of us, we hope it is a one and done, but it will have some residual effects, right? And some residual needs. But before COVID, Zeta Phi Beta, Delta Sigma Theta, the Links, Jack and Jill, Sigma Gamma Rho, we were in the community. Give me an example, and we're gonna move around this one. So other panelists, get ready. I'm just gonna call your name. Give me an example of a long-standing program. I don't need a full definition, but just tell me a program and tell me its impact.
Okay, so I'll tell you a program and I'll tell you its impact. And last year would have been the 10th annual event of the Free Market and Health Symposium that's held annually in New Haven on Dixwell Avenue. So the New Haven Alumnae Chapter has this program that has been established in the community. And when I say in the community, I mean in New Haven on Dixwell Avenue, that every summer around June, it's a free market basically. So items are given to the community. They come, they pick what they need, whether from household items to clothing. Then there's a health symposium piece as well. So while you are getting the things you need tangibly, you're also getting information and, different resources that you could better your life moving forward in your families. So last year would have been the 10th annual free market. And just given the impact of this event, we are definitely exploring ways to still have some kind of version of the free market, because it's very important that we still make sure that our community is getting the things they need, because we know they need them, right? And as organizations, as service organizations, all of us, it's important that we find ways to still do what we have to do to serve our community. So the short answer is Free Market and Health Symposium.
The short and the long answer is Health Market. That was also a public service announcement, right? So for those of you who are on the call, you have clothing and other items that you want to donate, put them in a box, label it Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And once we get out of this pandemic, we would love to partner with you on that. Kathy, I'm going to bring you forward because often you're the sixth speaker, but now I want you to be the second speaker. Give me an example of an initiative that has a longer standing impact.
It's our book award program or our scholarship program. We've given out over $360,000 in scholarships. We average about 10 every year. And in spite of COVID last year hitting everyone hard and we could not do a fundraiser, we are still giving out 10 scholarships this year.
That's awesome.
That would be our book awards.
That's awesome. So Kathy, I know in the chat, somebody's going to say, how do we get that information?
I will definitely.
If you have it, let us know. And if you don't, we will put it in the chat a little bit later and we can send it out to all of the guests today.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
And I can imagine that there are many parents who are preparing to send a child off to college. I am one of those. So Kathy, do get that information out to us.
I will.
Today I'm coming your way. What's one of those long-standing programs today?
Look, and I work with a few Deltas. Love my Delta sisters. So I always say to them, I was like, well, I'm going to clean and do some spring cleaning. So I will have some items for you all. Look, I even started last year. I had, I'm not going to call the person's name. And I said, well, can I bring them to your house? She said, a year prior? I said, yes. So needless to say, that did not happen. So one of the things that we've been consistent in is pouring into our youth. So we consistently have 4-year renewable scholarship and book awards. And we have consistently had a youth mentoring program, although it may have been titled differently and is more currently titled the CAP program, which is the college admissions process, where we have classes with high school students monthly. That information is on akanewhaven.org. And so is our scholarship information, because our scholarship application is out. And so when I say pour into our youth, because oftentimes we don't quite understand the unintentional way that we influence our youth. And so because they sit back and they observe us. And so I always say it's so important that when you act and when you lead with excellence. And so I will always say that, especially our organizations that were born out of the lack of resources in our communities during that time, as leaders, we have a responsibility to lead in a certain way to influence our youth. Our youth are doing amazing things around civic engagement, and we want to continue to pour in them. We want to continue to encourage them, because when we get students that come back to us and say, you in your chapter or individuals in your chapter influenced me and I accomplished this because of what you all have done, that is so impactful to us. And that reaffirms the work that we are doing and why we're doing it.
Thank you very much, Chanel. Dr. Tasha, longstanding program in the Sigma Gamma Rho community.
We have several of them, but the one that I do want to highlight is our National Youth Symposium. It is held the second Saturday of March. We just had the very first one virtually yesterday, where every chapter in every state and every location that we have has the same program in their area. And at the symposium here for New Haven is one of our larger programs. It is generally held at Southern. And we use, it's a curriculum that we go through. It's a day full of knowledge, interactive events. We feed, and it is free. So that would be one of the ones that I would like to highlight today for long standing, is how we engage our youth to teach them to become leaders in the community.
And that's fantastic. And I can endorse that program. My now senior in college was one of the students for that. It was a Saturday program for that event. So thank you. Dr. Jasmine, and then we'll conclude with Tony on this one. And then ladies, we're gonna go to a fill in the blank.
Thank you. I'll just mention two very briefly. We have one, our scholarship, of course, we do offer it every year to Zetas in the undergraduate and graduate curriculums, and also high school students. And then we also have under our Zetas Helping Other People Excel umbrella, we do blessing bundles every winter in efforts to, provide just tools that the homeless would need. So we go from, hygiene items, feminine care, and hats, socks, gloves, and blankets in the wintertime. So those are some of the things that we're doing in the city of New Haven.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I was also going to talk about our work with with people who are experiencing homelessness. However, I'm going to talk about literacy and how we've partnered with New Haven Reads over the course of many years in terms of book donations and offering services to the children that attend New Haven Reads. And most importantly, our very new partnership with Stetson Library. You'll hear more about it because I'm going to put some information in the link. We are going to be donating books to Stetson from now through the month of May, so that as they transition from their old place to the Q House, that they'll be equipped to have at least 80% of all of their books by and for African-American women. and
Okay,
men.
fantastic. Tony, stay with me. So here's our next fill in the blank. Often, I think for some to see the flyer entitled "Better Together, Collectively Transforming Lives and Strengthening Communities," and it have the face of each of the 6 of you representing 6 different organizations. I can imagine that someone asked the question, why would you bring those communities together? And so my fill in the blank is, and it's it's positioned in a biased way, that collaboration is essential because. And so can you start? And then Kathy, I'm coming to you. I'm gonna bounce from that blue and pink on Tony's shoulder to Kathy's green and white on her shoulder. Why is collaboration essential?
Thank you for the question. And I was actually hoping that I got that question.
Oh, okay.
I think it's important because we're doing pretty much of the same work, right? We're just under different headers, and we are impacting the same, community. For years, a friend set of mine always talked about, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could all come together collectively to focus on one specific need and make a great impact? So I see us not just as individuals, making our marks, but if we were to choose something, whether it's once a year, once every other year, we could truly impact in a larger way than what we're doing. I mean, we're making great impact. I'm not, implying that we're not. But what I'm saying is if we could come together and really, really do one event, all of our sororities, our fraternities as well, and make that great impact. And I'm thinking Q House, but I'll put some information out about that later.
Okay, I just saw a seed planted, and I saw her put a little fertilizer on it. And then Kathy, she's asking if you'd be willing to water it. And Dr. Jasmine and Dr. Tosh and Paula and Shanae, she's asking if you guys would be willing to sort of, remove those weeds over time. You don't have to answer right now, but Kathy, I'm coming to you. Why is collaboration essential?
Collaboration is strength. And Tony actually said it all. You just said it all. Collaboration is strength. If we learn to comfortably collaborate and collaborate with intention, we can move mountains.
Yeah.
All we have to do is come to work together and just do it.
Thank you. Thank you. Shanae, I have a different fill in the blank. So when I was reading your bio, you had the word volunteerism. And you listed all these organizations, and I tried to truncate them when I introduced you. And so can you, and this is for you and Dr. Jasmine, can you fill in the blank? Volunteerism can what?
Oh, I was waiting because I had just a tidbit that I'd like to add
Okay,
to
so take the
previous question.
And then now this one.
We're flexible. All right. Well, it's interesting, and I appreciate Tony bringing the collaboration around D9. And when we speak of a collective work, Shanae,
can you tell everyone on the call what D9 stands for? I'm not sure.
Oh, I'm sorry, the Divine Nine Organizations of Black Sororities and Fraternities.
Thank you.
And so one of the things that I look at when I look at all of the organizations, and so let me see if I'm sure I'm going to not remember all of them, but we have our Greek organizations, we have the Links, we have B&P, we have Eastern Star, we have Girlfriends, Phi Delta Kappa, Jack and Jill. If we think of a creative collective detailing how we put together a legislative agenda, right? So I totally get that we can work collaboratively, but I'm speaking just legislatively, right? If you think about that, that's over 1,000 constituents mobilized. And imagine when we say to someone, your seat isn't safe, and you have 1,000 constituents behind you, and we stand affirmatively with conviction and consistency, imagine that impact in the state of Connecticut. So my work is rooted in equity around housing and how we have people, and how do we get people to think about affordable housing differently, right? And so I think it's so important for us to kind of really get creative and think of that larger strategy of how we're going to deal with the inequities in the state of Connecticut. We have some of the largest wealth gaps in the state of Connecticut. A family, a middle class, and a working class family, we pay more taxes than a millionaire in Fairfield County. Think about that. So I think we have to, from this work, I would love to have those conversations with other organizations. You all appoint your representative and let's get together. Okay, now let's go back to your other question, Debbie.
Challenge accepted. Challenge accepted.
Okay, and so your other question was around volunteerism.
So fill in the blank. Volunteerism can. Short and succinct.
Volunteerism can make an impact.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Jazz?
So I like the points that Sinead just made about thinking differently and sharing experiences. So for me, volunteerism can change the world. I think giving up oneself is an absolute gift. And, you know, sometimes we get to a certain point where we're kind of like, you know, I learned this, it's in my head, I'm holding it tight. And it's like, but share it. Knowledge management, you know, it's like we have to be able to share our collective ideas in order to push forward with the changes. And so like you just said, Sinead, you know, they think you're in the corner, but no, I have all these people behind me. They believe in what I'm doing. They're marching with me. So yes, I have support. And so I think as long as we understand that and we start to gather more and more together, to your point, all the seeds planted today, we can, you know, move mountains. I hate to sound cliche, but it's true, you know, so the more we dig in there and share information, I think that's going to be really important for that volunteer effort, because you just never know. I mean, you have people coming from all walks of life and all these things that we do. And at the root of all that was their desire to serve and volunteer. So thank you.
Okay, fantastic. All right, now I'm going to do one question per person because it's 2:40. I'm going to do a couple more questions. It's 2:43. Our program ends at 3 o'clock, and I do have a timed agenda, but I want to stretch it a little bit, and then we'll open up questions for the audience. So audience, here is your prompt. If you have a question, put it in the chat now, and our Zoom producer will read through your questions, and she will read them out loud. But in the meantime, let me leave you with a Black woman's inspirational quote. And this is from Ian Labanzat, who I absolutely love. I know everyone doesn't, but I do. It's time for you to move, realizing that the thing you are seeking is also seeking you. The thing you are seeking is also seeking you. And so I want to go to Dr. Tasha. Dr. Tasha, you have 2 businesses that you lead. It was in your bio, so I didn't make it up. You are a licensed social worker, clinical social worker. It was in your bio. I did not make it up. You are also an ordained preacher. It is in your bio. I didn't make it up. There was one other fact in your bio, in Tony's bio, and in Sinead's, I think it was in your bio too, Sinead, but I may be wrong. It may be what I know about you. And it's another role that honestly, I didn't really want to focus on in today's talk. And it's the role of being a parent, right? Because I wanted to make sure that as we're celebrating women, I wanted to celebrate the 6 of you in your role as a leader of a community-based organization, of a volunteer organization. Can you talk, and this is for you, Dr. Tasha, can you talk about balancing all of the different roles that you have, including parenting? And if you had to give your younger self a bit of advice, what would that advice be? Right? Dr. Tasha.
Well, let me start here, because now I'm just going to go to in mother mode. Woo, child. Listen, woo, child. Listen, let's talk about balance, because that's one of the things that my soror sisters and friends talk about, because as I juggle, I balance as well. And being leaders in many things, or anything. So yes, we have sorority life, but like you said, I'm a preacher. I own two thriving businesses. And there's other things that I have my hands in, but at home, I am also the mother of a soon to be 21-year-old, and I have a 12-year-old. So we have this amazing gap where one is really independent and the other one's like, hey, what's for dinner?
Right.
And so looking at this, I always say you have to take time out and prioritize the important. There's a difference between important and emergent. And for me, I am very much a planner, and I know the difference between it being a priority, emergency, and important. So the emergent things I tackle. The important things wait. It doesn't make them less important, just they have to wait a bit.
Okay.
And
so what's that advice to the younger self?
Is
I think we had a little bit of technology difficulty when Dr. Tasha. Oh, okay.
I'm back.
Great.
I would say emergent and important. Knowing those, self-care is big. So just because I'm a mom, just because I run a few businesses and I'm in leadership, it doesn't mean that I don't have needs. So part of that is having a holistic self-care plan.
Okay.
So yes, I'm a mom, but yes, I'm still just a girl from around the way, and I'm gonna go hang out with my girls from around the way. So yes, I'm a businesswoman, but yes, I'm still going to do all of these things. So if I had to say something to my younger self, I would say, girl, go take a nap.
Okay. Kathy Graves, what are you saying to your younger self?
That would be it. Just girl, go take a nap. Get some rest.
Thank you, Dr. Tasha. Kathy, what are you saying to your younger self?
Everything's gonna be all right.
Okay, thank you. Shanae, what are you saying to your younger self?
Be bold and unapologetic.
Okay, Tony Lagann, we're back to you. What are you saying to your younger self? Which means that was a conversation that happened yesterday, I'm sure. But what are you saying?
You have a voice, use it.
Okay, I'm going to conclude with Paula on this question. What would you say to your younger self? And I want to underscore that in my role, I oversee diversity. And so I'm someone that speculates on lots of things. I speculate on age and race and gender, sexual orientation. And so I know I don't have to speculate when looking at this panel, that our panel is really representative of a couple of generations. And so I'm always curious in knowing what does one see and would potentially change if they could. And so Paula, you've grown up in an era that I didn't grow up in, therefore we don't have to say ages, right? And so I'm really curious to know, as really probably a millennial, right? What do you say to your younger self?
So yes, so just to confirm, I am a millennial. I'm a proud millennial. So
absolutely.
So I would definitely say, and it's really different too, because I feel like over the last few years, the social media and just the whole social environment has changed what I would say I didn't get to experience. We didn't have, even though I am a millennial, we weren't so attached to phones, right? And social media. So in my younger days, I guess, I would say to just continue to believe in yourself. And I know it's very important, but to set boundaries. So Dr. Natasha mentioned it, if you want to do something at that moment, you do it. If not, you say no, or you set that boundary to where you know what you're going to be doing, when and where. So I would say definitely set boundaries, but also to believe in yourself to achieve what you're looking to achieve.
Okay, fantastic. And Dr. Hardy, I'm going to give you this opportunity as well.
Okay. I would say mine would be, never shrink, because sometimes we've all had this situation where we walk in the room and there's people that do not look like us at all anywhere, never been there, haven't been thought about. And it's like, no, you still come in that room, you still do what you need to do. You leave them better than, when you walk in. That's my advice.
And I saw someone put in the chat, do not silence yourself. So I'm someone that I hear people use the statement, I found my voice. And I typically say, you never lost your voice, right? What's happening is you're now using your voice. And so we're going to turn to the audience. We're going to tell you thank you a couple of times. I want to say thank you to the 6 panelists. Our chapter president, my chapter president, Paula Irvin, who's on screen now. To my sorority sister, but in this capacity, the president of Jack and Jill, Tony Lagann, thank you. To Shanae Drawn, whose house I was at last night, and we were talking in the dark. Shanae, thank you for being present and fully engaged with today's panel. Dr. Jasmine, what folks don't know, and this is where virtual makes life wonderful, they don't know that you would have had a long commute had you come from Virginia to be with us today. I want to thank you for your presence and your full engagement. And I'm so glad that on your first panel presentation, you chose to do it with Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, and you allowed your voice really to be illuminated. So thank you. Dr. Tasha, I don't know what I'm thanking you for. I don't know if I'm thanking you for the mental health advice. I don't know if I'm thanking you for the spiritual advice. I don't know if I'm thanking you for the ideas that you and your Sigma Gamma Rho sorority have planted for us and the other my organization, the other organizations represented. But I want to thank you for bringing your whole self to today's talk. And by order only, Kathy Graves, by order only on the flyer, I want to thank you for your presence. I want to thank you for your leadership. And I also want to thank you for really, I think, in some cases, leading this conversation about COVID in a way that was private, because the work that you were doing happened before many of the organizations actually got involved, right? You've got a lens through your place of employment that gets to see the obstacles sometimes before we get to see them and address them. So thank you for your presence as well. I'm going to turn to my Keisha. It's 2:53. I believe we pride ourselves in ending on time, which is 3 o'clock. My Keisha, could we take 2 to 3 questions if you have them in the chat? And then I'm going to turn things over to Sora Katrina, who will close us out. But again, all 6 panelists, thank you for helping us to facilitate a New Haven masterclass on Women's History Month 2021. My Keisha?
As Black women, we often try to take on so many tasks and often find that we are giving so much of ourselves that we leave little for ourselves. Can you talk about how you incorporate self-care into your lives as well?
Tony, I want you to take that.
Okay, this is something that I tend to struggle with, but January 2021, I made a commitment to myself that I'm turning my phone off at a certain time. If it's not important, and I thank Dr. Tasha for indicating emergent versus important. If it's not something that's life-threatening, it can wait until tomorrow. And I have a young man who's preparing for his senior year, and I need to give my energy and time to him. So I've really been cutting down on those late night hours, doing whether it's Jack and Jill stuff or even if it's work stuff. So I've been taking that time for myself, and I'm looking forward to exiting as the president to be able to have more time to do that.
Thank you. Kathy, would you join us on that question?
I will. One of the things that I did when I turned 40, I learned how to say no. No is a strategy. And I live by that. And it's important to be able to comfortably say no, and not your personal time is not negotiable.
That's fantastic.
And be comfortable doing that.
That's fantastic. In one of Oprah Winfrey's master classes, she interviewed Chandra Rhimes. And I'm someone that likes to take away a nugget or two. And the nugget that I took away, I took many away, but the one that stands out illuminates what you just said, Kathy. And Chandra Rhimes said it this way, that no is a complete sentence. So I want to thank you.
It is.
My Keisha, is there another?
Yes, we briefly talked about the importance of volunteerism. Given limitations due to COVID, how do you ladies recommend individuals continue to get involved and support the community?
Paula, will you start with this one?
Absolutely. So there are so many ways to get involved. And as each of the panelists shared, we're all constantly doing different actions in the community. So I would definitely say to, of course, follow on social media, check the website for updates, and just stay in tune because there's always something going on. So my first answer is to be sure to connect with the social media outlets, other organizations, because it's shared widely as to what's going on. And then also connect more directly. Each organization has their own programs, president, vice president, who can then share with you the details of what's going on, because I can guarantee you there is so much happening in the communities that we can all chip in, seriously.
Thank you. Mykesha, is there another?
Let me see.
If not, I have one closing fill in the blank for all the panelists.
Okay, you could go to that.
Okay, so this will be our last for the panelists. It is Women's History Month 2021. We will all be here in March of 2022. What is your hope for Women's History Month 2022? Kathy, I'm going to start with you and we're going to go in the reverse order and we'll end with our chapter president, Paula. What's your hope for Women's History Month 2022?
I hope that we can come together in person in 2022, comfortably come together in person in 2022. I am looking so forward to just going out, having a glass of wine with my friends.
Okay.
I'm
Well,
looking
there's 6 more added to that night out, right, Kathy?
Absolutely. And I have my shots. So I
Okay.
am ready.
Thank you. Dr. Tasha? Hope for 2022, Women's History Month. Oh, did we lose her?
No, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay. I can now. Thank you.
Okay. I will concur with Kathy that we are all able to come together. My hope is that we survive this year and next year we can be bigger, better, and stronger.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Jazz?
Very similar comment. My hope is that we grow and collaborate more with, our like-minded audience here to bring bigger and better benefits to our local communities, and also in person. That would be outstanding.
Agreed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shanae?
Well, I'm definitely looking forward to having an in-person discussion, but I will just echo a comment that I think is a serious takeaway, in that we collectively work on a legislative agenda statewide.
Fantastic. Seed planted. Tony? Hope for 2022 Women's History Month.
Dittoing the coming together, but a little bit more personal. I would really love to see a vaccine that lasts for this COVID. There's been so much loss, but absolutely just coming together, joining together on an identified initiative.
Okay, fantastic. Paula, chapter president for New Haven Alumnae Chapter, will you please respond? And then I will ask you to kick that back to Katrina for closing remarks.
Yes. So thank you all again for joining us today. And you all have pretty much shared what I want to see for 2022. But I'd just like to add that, of course, as the program is titled Better Together, I believe going forward just in 2021, we'll all be better together, and we'll brainstorm and come up with collaborative ways to be more in touch and do different things. So for all the attendees, get excited, because I think 2021 is going to be a whole new array of things happening. And you might even say, wow, all of this is going on, but listen, we're better together. So get ready for it. So I'll say get ready, basically.
Thank you. Katrina, back to you.
It's just not a lot that I can say. I don't know if many people have been watching me. I've been smiling. I'm just jazzed up. I'm moving. This was excellent. Thank you for all our panelists who joined us today. Conversation was excellent. Thank you for everyone who attended this session. We loved all the energy. I could feel it through the Zoom, through the chat. So thank you for just being a part and celebrating for our Women's History Month program. I am just overly joyed and excited to see what we have in store, as we cannot do anything in silos. It's even more critical in this time to come together and work harder and stronger and form a union and so many things that we need to do. Now, just final few housekeeping things. Your opinion and your feedback means a lot to us. Therefore, we're going to drop a survey link in the chat window. So please take an opportunity to complete our survey. We want to hear from you. We want to make sure that we can continue to grow and do things better. If you don't get a chance to complete the link, you'll get it by email. We ask you to please complete our survey. Also, please join us. We continue to have more programs. We have our next programming event that's coming up this Wednesday at 6 p.m. Where we're going to be talking about, you can scan the survey link here and do it at your leisure as well, but we really would love to get your feedback on the program. And as noted, we have our next programming event coming up for this Wednesday, March 17th at 6 p.m. What we're talking about is one of our series called The Journey: Building and Sustaining Financial Freedom, because we know, more importantly now, we need to be financially set and fit to do the work that we need to do for our families and our community. So please join us for that. And then continue to follow us and visit our website and social media. So I am overjoyed. And again, thank you so much for attending and participating in this excellent program. And thank you for all our panelists and my beautiful soror, the moderator, Debbie, and my wonderful president, who I am overly joyed to be partnering and working hard with the chapter with. So have a wonderful day and be blessed.
Take care, everyone. Be safe. Thank you for joining us.
Excellent.